Hey guys, welcome back to Maelstrom Gaming Studios, and today we're doing another Tyranid deep dive. We're going to cover one of, if not my favorite units in the Tyranid codex. And we haven't done a deep dive on it because they're just them. There's not a ton of depth in terms of how to upgrade them, what ways to play them and things like that. They're a little one-dimensional. However, I still love them, and it was kind of shocking that I haven't covered them yet in depth on the channel. So we're going to do that today. If you are new to the channel, welcome to Maelstrom Gaming Studios. This is just where we cover a lot of things Warhammer 40k with an emphasis on Tyranids because they are the faction that I love the most in my heart. So we'll do things like this video, Tyranid deep dives. We'll also do battle reports and things like that. So welcome, subscribe, and like if you are interested in this content and want to stay up to date. And if you want to help support the channel just a little bit more, you can consider becoming a member. Down below, you click the little join button. Members get access to our member-only Discord channel and some member-exclusive videos and other things like that. So with all that wrapped up, or with all that out of the way, let's dive into today's video. Okay, so we are covering, like I said, one of my favorite units here in the Tyranid Codex. They've always been one of my favorite, but they have never been good until now. So now they were, they were really cool in theory and lore, but they weren't good, so they're kind of still eh. Now they're good in lore and good in rules, so I'm really loving them and really happy that they are. That unit, I don't think I've said the name yet, if you haven't noticed, is the Tyranid Ravener. The snake, the small snake, boys. Vicious, vicious creatures that the Tyranids employ as shock troops. So in this video, we will cover their profile, their war gear options, the best options I think. I think it's pretty one-sided for the most part. We'll cover some high fleet synergies. There are a lot of combos you can do with these guys, some damage comparisons, and we'll wrap it up with a little bit of a conclusion at the end. So let's jump into that profile. The Raveners are now coming in at 35 points thanks to the chapter approved point increase. They have a 12-inch movement, one of the fastest units in the codex, weapon skill, ballistic skill 3+, strength and toughness 5, 4 wounds. I cannot stress this enough how important that 4th wound is to making these guys insane. 5 attacks. The biggest downside you guys will probably notice right there is the leadership 5. It's something you have to be careful working around. Even when taking squads of 5, you do have to be careful. If you go into a bad round of combat, you could fail morale and lose a pretty hefty model. Main deterrent why you don't see too many people bringing 9-man block of these is if you do throw them into something and you lose 3 or 4 of them, you could lose a good chunk of it. Now, because Synapse is only 6-inch range, you do have to bring dedicated units. Little combo things like I would like to try is, Parasitomortrex or synaptically enhanced harpies or tyrannocytes, something fast in Synapse to stay with these things. Anyway, back to the profile. They start as a 3-man unit. You can take up to 9 of them. Every model has Ravener claws and 2 scything talons. Those can be swapped out as for various weapons. So the scything talons can be replaced with rending claws. And now the trade-offs here is that you have Ravener claws, so you always have Ravener claws. If you're taking rending claws, you're never going to use the Ravener claws. If you're taking scything talons, you're going to use the Ravener claws and then the 2 extra scything talon attacks. It's a little wonky, but they had to do it to match the way the model is actually modeled, so I understand that. They also have gun options, and to what some people are confused who don't know this kit, and maybe they've seen Raveners in the past, the models are modeled with guns in their chest. They're like thorax mounted guns. So you have 6 arms and a gun, so the gun does not replace a weapon option. And your gun options are the Death Spitter, which is a great one, the Devourer, and the Thorax Spine Fists. Now, in theory, they all look kind of cool. Death Spitters, if you're asking me, someone who's used Raveners a ton, Death Spitters all the way, and if you're going to use a gun, use them. The pistols have some play, especially in a Chronos detachment, then you can get those things up to AP2 and at strength 6. So the pistols have some play. I just think it's better to go full Death Spitter than not. In terms of the melee weapons, again, I say you should take Rending Claws over the Scything Talons. Yes, you're missing out on 2 attacks, but of those 2 attacks you take, the 2 attacks are maybe gonna generate an extra wound or 2, but the Rending Claws are gonna slice through armor to the point where it's just gonna, make up for the fact that your opponent's taking armor saves on the other Scything Talon and the Ravener Claws, and they're not taking armor saves most likely on the Rending Claws. So, preferred loadout, Rending Claws, Death Spitters. They have a couple special abilities, not much, but a couple. The first one is their Serpentine Body, which is melee attacks against them, subtract 1 to hit. That is also very good for them. You want them in melee, so they're already making them harder to kill in melee, that much better. Also, their Vicious Devour rules. If you choose not to give them a gun, they reroll 1s to hit innately, which sounds really good. It is good, but you'll have to see some math later to realize what the trade-off truly is on it. Their infantry, their core, their burrowers, and their raveners. So, yeah. Thoughts on the war gear? I already touched on this. I kind of got ahead of myself here. Rending Claws every time. And the thoughts of to include a Death Spitter or not to include a Death Spitter. If you have a Hive Tyrant or Swarmy in your army, they can give this unit full rerolls, so then it makes sense to have the guns. If you don't have a Hive Tyrant or Swarm Lord in your army, I should say reroll 1s or full rerolls, then it becomes a little bit of a trickier decision because you won't get any rerolls with these any other way, so then you have to think about it. You'll see the math, and we'll touch back on this later. Some high fleet synergies for you guys. So there's actually a lot with the Raveners, more than I first thought of. So first you got Behemoth. Raveners with Rending Claws will get up to strength 7, AP -4, and damage 1 on the charge. You're wounding tanks down 4s, which is really crazy. They also have a psychic power for +1 to wound. Now, toughness 6 things, notably Dread Knights, you are wounding on 2s if you get this power off on them. A unit of 5 Raveners with this psychic power on them, and Behemoth obviously, will shred through a regular Dread Knight with relative ease. Chronos, a very interesting one. You get extra AP on shooting within half range is one of the adaptive traits, and they also get 4 inches extra to your range. So now your Death Spitters are looking at an 18 or 28 inch range, 14 inch half range for extra AP. And that extra AP is no joke on a Death Spitter because you are now going up to AP -3. So Marines with Armor of Contempt are already going to be at a 5-up save against those. And most Xenos armies are not going to get a save against those, if maybe a 6-up. You can also have a psychic power on them for +1 strength, which means now your Death Spitters, while it's not as crazy to go from strength 5 to 6, still going from strength 5 to strength 6 can be a big deal when you have so many shots that you're putting out. Also, you can always consider Onslaught for advancing and shooting without penalty with your assault weapon. So now you can get that much farther across the board, get within that 14-inch range quicker, and do your damage. And still charge and stuff like that if you need to. Death Spitters can be, like I said, Assault 3, Strength 6, AP -3, which is very, very scary when you have a large number of them. There are more. There's 2 more. So Hydra is another one that has some potential play with Raveners. It's good for a large block of them if you want to take into account the whole outnumbering ability that Hydra really tries to play into. So +1 to move just innately with their adaptive trait. Now they're at 13 inches, which is crazy. And +1 to hit if they're outnumbered, or if they outnumber their opponent. So if you have a block of 9 and you go up against something like a block of 5 Terminators or some elite unit that there's maybe only 5 or 6 of, hitting on 2s now is wild. And then they do have a strat, which if they outnumber their opponent, they also can re-roll their wound roll, which will just fully guarantee the deletion of most infantry units that the Ravener goes up against. Even with this, you can threaten tanks. Now tanks count, or monsters count, as 5 models, so you'll need at least 6 of them. But if you do, you are threatening tanks and monsters alike with these abilities off. Now for my favorite, High Fleet Kraken the Raveners are designed to play in High Fleet Kraken. Your Rending Claws become AP -5, which bypasses armor saves with Armor of Contempt on a 3-up armor saves. Opportunistic Advance strat is insane because these Raveners can now move 20 inches. As long as you can put Onslaught on them, they can advance and charge, and with our Synaptic Chains for casting powers, it's still relatively easy to keep them within that distance to get the power off. You can do some insane movement combos with these things. You can have Turfagons, which are seeing more popularity in the list. I really like them in my list now, for an extra 2-inch movement from their Synaptic Imperative. You can do Opportunistic Advance for that 8-inch advance. You have Onslaught. You have Shard Lure for the 3d6, pick the 2 highest. And you have the Feed trait for +1 to charge. All of these wrapped up being used at once, which isn't that out of the realm of possibility. It's pretty common to do something like that. Is a 31-inch average threat range for these Raveners to get into combat. 31 inches. I mean, with the board being smaller, that is a turn 1 charge, pretty much guaranteed, because No Man's Land is 24 inches at most, unless obviously they deploy backwards or you deploy backwards, but that is 7 inches into No Man's Land that you can on average reach out and touch. Now maybe the Shard Allure, you're not going to get off turn 1, so maybe it's a 30-inch without the reroll threat range. So just nasty speed. Your opponent really can't plan on hiding everything, so if they put something out of the way or in some place like, oh, they're safe here, no, zoom, delete, and then you have Overrun to move back. If you do it your Turfgon phase, back 14 inches or put them wherever else you need to. Maybe get them back into a Synapse bubble or something like that. They'll probably need it. So yeah, that High Fleet Kraken, love them in there. Now, core buffs and unit size is something to consider with Raveners. Common sizes I would recommend for the Raveners, a 3-man unit. If you just need something to kind of clear chaff, maybe drop a banner, maybe you want to try engaging all fronts or behind enemy lines. Raveners aren't a horrible option for things like that. So 3-man units are great, relatively cheap. A 5-man unit is turning into my favorite to take. 5-man units, you can give them decent durability at 5-man. They can still be objective grabbers for early and late game. And they have enough punch to delete a lot of average sized infantry units. Sure, maybe there's a big block of fully buffed Marines or something. Maybe 5 can't totally go through that. But how often are you going up against something like that? And then big 9-man, go big or go home. These guys, you're going to be putting guns on them. You're going to want a Hive Tyrant or Swarm Lord in your list. Maybe even a Tyranid Prime to give them reroll 1s to wound. Maybe someone with the Direct Guidance Warlord trait to give them +1 hit. This is all your buffs on this one unit. They are going to zip up the board. They're going to shoot a unit to death, and then they are going to charge a unit and then delete them, or maybe 2 units and delete those guys. The biggest thing I have to stress with this unit is either have a Synapse creature ready to help them out in morale, or have 2 CP ready to auto pass a morale check, because your opponent is going to focus everything on them, and it might be huge if you can keep those last couple alive by auto passing a morale. So just keep that in mind. With only leadership 5, they do go a little crazy in the morale phase. I mentioned these core buffs already when talking about the 9-man unit, but just so you want to see them, Direct Guidance, I love on Raveners. The Hive Tyrant Swarmy rerolls, you can't go wrong with those ones either. And then Alpha Warrior for rerolling 1s to wound. is also quite good in and of itself. One more buff to talk about is the Catalyst 5-up Feel No Pain. Saying this again, on a 4-wound model with relative durability, a 4-up save is not, crazy good, but it's not bad. And -1 to hit melee. A 4-wound model with 5-up Feel No Pain is so obnoxious to take down, because you have to look at, there aren't many, if any, damage 4 weapons. Some of them are. We have heavy venom cannons, but there aren't many damage 4 weapons. So then you look at damage 1, 2, and 3 weapons, which are probably what's going into them. Damage 1 weapon, sure, Feel No Pain is a 1-to-1 there. If you have a damage 2 weapon and you make, let's say you get hit with two damage 2 weapons and you make one of those Feel No Pain, well, now you need a 3rd shot. If you get lucky and make 2 of those Feel No Pains, you need a 4th shot in order to bring down just one of these Raveners. And if you're on a 3-wound model, you need at least 2 of those shots to go through. You'll probably not be saving enough to bring out a 3rd shot, but because you have 4 wounds, if you spike a little average on 2 of them, so you make a 50-50 roll instead of a 33% roll on your 5-up Feel No Pains, now they need a 3rd shot to bring down, again, just one model. And these damage 3 weapons, most armies don't just have mass damage 3 weapons. If they're going to be looking at that, they're going to be using their anti-tank fire on you. And if they're using their anti-tank fire on a unit of Raveners, they're not using it on your big bugs that are coming up the board next turn. So, Feel No Pain, when I am playing with my Raveners, the unit of Raveners is almost always the unit I am trying to give Catalyst to each game, unless there's just something else that is in a bigger situation where it will need it. But absolutely, these Raveners, that 4th wound is just bonkers how much extra durability they gain from it. We'll go over a little bit of damage comparison here. If you've seen our videos, this is our standard slate of enemies, and just look at the numbers here. So I should stress, this is of a 9-man unit. So if you want to see how much a 3 or a 5-man unit does, just multiply this number by a 1/3 for a 3-man unit, or 5/9 for a 5-man unit, or if you want a 6-man unit, multiply it by 2/3, and that'll get you your number to figure out how much damage you're going to do. But just look at what these units can do. I mean, come on. Almost 30 slain, not Dire Avengers, but Guardians. Sure, everything kills Guardians, but man. The 3 things I looked at here, and this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, we'll look at the math. Rending Claws with guns, Rending Claws without guns, so with the reroll ones to hit, and then Death Spitters. How much damage does your average unit with their Death Spitters do? And I guess I should have seen this coming, but I was shocked. So you look at the difference between the with guns and without guns, and then see how much damage the Death Spitter does. In just about every situation, it's better to just take the damage that the Death Spitter does and add it to the Rending Claw damage than taking the Rending Claws without guns damage. So that is just nasty right there. It does sell it for me. I think Rending Claws with guns is the best way to go. And these are baseline profiles that you're looking at. This is not with Behemoth. This is not with Kraken. This is not with, your core buffs that you could put on. So these numbers are, on average, the worst they're going to be. They're going to just only get better from there from when you put buffs onto them. So just damage on damage on damage, and I love it. So little conclusion, we saw from the math that the Rending Claw with Death Spitters are the best. Kraken and Behemoth is going to boost these numbers even higher, which is why I just so love Kraken. Behemoth is a good one too, but I love Kraken. And then final wrap up, these are your shock troops. These things, whether it's a 3-man unit or 5-man unit, you can rush them up the flanks, take out key opponents that your enemy has got, kind of stationed on the flanks. Maybe someone's playing with, they have minimal troop choices to do banners or various actions. Send these guys after those troop choices. That way your opponent can no longer do the actions, or they have to dedicate a more, maybe a melee centered threat or a shooting threat to do the actions now that their chaff is getting gummed up. One thing I didn't mention in this video, and I'm noticing this now, is I did not talk about any strats to do with the Raveners. There aren't really many besides the high fleet specific ones I mentioned. One other one that is oh so important for the Raveners is overrun. Because these guys, assuming you put them against the right targets and you roll relatively average, these guys are going to kill what they hit. Overrun to get them out of safety is going to be very important. I always recommend saving CP for overrun when you're sending melee threats into combat. Because with these guys, what you're going to do with overrun is you'll fall them back after they kill behind some line of sight blocking terrain, or if there's none of that around, put them in area terrain. So now they are rocking a 3-up save. Maybe they also have Catalyst on them as well, and they just become that much more durable. Maybe they get back within a synaptic bubble, and you can put the field or the invuln save on them then, and then they're just that much more durable to deal with. Absolutely make the best use of overrun you can with the Raptors. You don't have to do it every turn. That'll get CP intensive. Maybe you need to use it for other turns. But if you're going to do like a turn 1 long bomb charge and Kraken, delete a unit, you probably want to save something for overrun to get them out of there. Or maybe they can just stay, tie up some other shooting threats and force your opponent to just take a chunk of their army to gun down these Raveners and give the rest of your army a free turn to move up the board. So yes, Raveners, I love them. They're so versatile if you want to play them as objective grabbers, melee threats, or play the big 9-man Death Star bomb. I had so much fun and success with that one too. So that's it. That is the Tyranid Ravener. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Do you use Raveners? Have you thought about them? Maybe you haven't. I recommend them, but again, I think my love of Ravener does come from playing Kraken so much that they're just like they're a 12 out of 10 rated unit in the Tyranid Codex. They are an S tier unit in Kraken. Not in Kraken, I still give them an A unit, but in Kraken, they are hands down one of the best units in the Codex. So I love them. Let me know what you guys think. Give me some, if you want to see other deep dives, check out the playlist for the 9th edition Tyranid Tacticas. We have done a couple of deep dives so far, but if there's one you want to see, put it down in the comments below and we will touch on it eventually here on the channel. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you members for supporting us, and we'll catch you next time here at Maelstrom Gaming Studios.